Good morning, everyone. It's yet another cold December morning here, and as I promised a few weeks ago, today it's time for a service for our Kia. This is a 2014 Kia Sportage with a 2-liter diesel engine with 184 horsepower, and these are the components that I will be using for the service. Just one quick mention, today I won't be covering the swapping of the diesel filter, as is the case for the Range Rover. That's going to come a bit later, and it's going to have its own dedicated film. Also, one of the components missing is the pollen filter or the cabin filter. That's simply because I already changed it about 5,000 kilometers ago, so it's not really necessary to change it right now, but I will show you how it's supposed to be done anyways. And with that said, let's go over the components in a bit more detail. For the filters, I went all out with Mahle. Now normally I use either Mahle or MAN, depending on the car, depending on the price, though they're fairly similar. I am personally under the impression that Mahle is ever so slightly better, but you can't really go wrong with either of them. And for the oil, it's a Ravenol FEL 5W30, and I'll go into a bit more detail with each of them in a second. This is the engine air filter. It's Mahle LX2869, and it looks something like this. It looks fairly well made, fairly good quality. This is the oil filter package, which is OX377D. What's nice about this is they give you the full package. So they give you the filter, the O-ring, and also the small bolt that's used for draining the filter. And what's nice to notice is that not all the manufacturers actually give you this, which is another proof that Mahle actually has good products. Here we have the diesel filter that we'll be swapping in a few weeks from now. It's model KC226, and it looks something like this. It's made of metal, canister type. What's nice about it, if you look, it also gives you at some point the torque needed to install it properly. With regards to oil, I went with Ravenol. You know, I do like the brand. They don't sponsor me or anything. I just think they have very good products and no reason to change brands so far. This is the FEL kind. It's a synthetic oil with the Kia C2 specification that is good for a lot of Asian brands, as far as I've seen, like Honda diesels, Mazda diesels, Toyotas, Subaru diesels, and so on. And it also matches what the manufacturer asks, because in our case we have the diesel engine 2-liter with DPF, and it's asking for either a Kia C2 or C3. So far, the car has been serviced at a dealer with Shell Helix while the car was in warranty. It just got out of warranty a couple of months ago, which is why I'm going to start servicing it myself. I just wanted to add a few more mentions about the oil because I forgot to do this earlier. So number one, as I said, we went with a Kia C2. Why did I choose C2? Well, one aspect of C2 is it has a lower percentage of ash, which is going to prolong the life of your diesel particulate filter. Another aspect is the HTHS parameter, high temperature, high shear parameter, can be a bit lower, which may improve fuel economy, but may also mean you have less protection. However, in the case of this one, you have the specifications online available, and this one has an HTHS of 3.2. The limit for C2 is 2.9, and the limit for C3 is 3.5. So it's in the middle between the two. So this should give very good protection, but also prolong the life of the diesel particulate filter. The second aspect why I like Ravenol is they're almost impossible to counterfeit. They are good products, as I said, because I've used them and I'm happy with them. But one mechanism that is available to check that each and every single bottle is genuine is you have these two codes at the back. These are scratch codes, and you can enter them on their website, and they will tell you if the code is either invalid, or if it's valid, or if it's valid but has already been checked. which means that if you are now going to check these codes, they will tell you that they are valid, but they've already been checked, obviously by me when I bought the bottles, to make sure that everything is well. And with regards to the servicing state of the car, so far we've changed the oil and filters on it every 16,000 kilometers, give or take, because well, the manual recommends every 2 years or 30,000 kilometers, which I think is a lot, especially given that this car has also been driven partly inside the city. And now that I'm starting to work on it, I'm going to apply the same principle of changing the filters and oil every 10,000 kilometers, because I think this is the best way to keep it in good health for as long as possible. And if we check the mileage, we'll see that the car has 150,492 kilometers at the time of filming, which is nice because it means it will be very easy to know when the next service is due. It's going to be 160,000, 170,000, and so on. And with that said, let's get to work. But first, take a look at how the engine bay looks. It's not nice, is it? Well, it hasn't really been cleaned ever since we got the car. Don't ask why. But that's all going to change today, because I really wanted to clean this thing before I start working on it. So, give me a couple of hours and I'm gonna make this look a little bit better. And after about 2 hours of work later, here are the results. I think you'll agree it looks much better than before. The reason why this thing took so long is because I tried to cover every nook and cranny that I could find, including the engine bay, which was full of leaves and all kinds of things. I wasn't really aiming for perfection, but I still think it's about 90% better than it was before, and I only used some soapy water, a brush, a few towels, and a vacuum cleaner to pull out large objects and some of the water that was pooling in various areas. So no high pressure water in this case. Even though it takes a bit longer to do this kind of cleaning, it's well worth it, because you can expect to not have any issues with the car afterwards. Right, and with the cleaning done, it's time to get back to the proper servicing. Here we are about half an hour later. I took the car out for a quick drive to warm up and subsequently thin the oil a bit so that it's easier to drain. And we're gonna start with the oil and the oil filter, for which we need to go underneath the car and first remove the underbody shield. Now, for most cases this is made of plastic, but on this car, as with the Opel, I have installed a metal shield, which is held in place with a couple of bolts and a few clips. So I need to first take this thing out. I've removed the metal shield, and the first thing that you need to do, go ahead and open the oil filler cap right here to make sure that air can get into the system, which will help with the draining of the old oil. There you go. Before you open this, go ahead and clean around so that you don't get debris inside the engine. Okay, it looks good. No cappuccino, so no mixing of oil and coolant. That's good news. And just put it a bit to one side, something like this, so that you can have air getting in. Now let's go underneath of the car and see what's what. And here we are underneath the car. Here is the oil filter. We'll tackle this a bit later. And here at the back is the oil drain bolt. I have already put my oil container underneath. This takes a 17mm hex, and we just slacken it off a little bit. And the rest of it, we're just going to go by hand and make sure that you don't lose the bolt in the oil pan, because then it's going to be a bit messy. Also, make sure to remove the aluminum washer right here. So, let's take this out by hand, and when you feel that it's ready, just take it out and let the oil drain. Now let's take a look at the drain bolt for a second, which is this one. You see it has this aluminium crush washer right here, which has been used, though I'm not sure for how many times it has been used. In theory, you're only supposed to use it once. I did see some oil spots near the oil pan, so either this was used more than once or they didn't tighten it properly. Either way, again, I'm not really happy with what I saw, but that's one additional reason why I'm going to do this work on my own. So first of all, remove this crush washer and install a new one. And here is the drain bolt with the brand new crush washer, and now it's time to put it back. And here's what I mean. This is the oil pan, this is where the drain bolt goes, and you see there's this dark spot over here, which means oil has leaked a bit, which it normally should never do if the drain bolt is properly installed with a proper seal and tightened to the proper torque. Anyways, we have the bolt, we have the new seal. Always start installing it by hand. Don't use any kind of power tool or anything like that, because you want to be sure that you don't cross thread it by mistake. And we managed to screw it in. Just tighten it by hand until you can't tighten it anymore. And now we're gonna clean up and bring the torque wrench. I've done the cleanup, and because this drain bolt uses a crush washer, an aluminum crush washer, as opposed to a rubber O-ring, the tightening torque is a bit higher. The manual gives between 31.5 and 38.5 Newton meters. I've chosen 36, and with my torque wrench I tighten to the specified torque. That is it. Let us now move on to the oil filter. Now, with regards to the oil filter that's here in front, you again notice the plastic cap, but also this drain bolt here. Now, the drain bolt uses a 6mm Allen to unscrew, and the plastic cap uses a 24mm hex that goes here. But the problem is, you can't untighten the plastic cap until you remove the bolt. So we need to first remove this. It's gonna drain a little bit more oil that was in the filter. And after we remove the bolt, we can proceed with removing the oil cap. So let's go. The bolt shouldn't really be torqued too high. There we go. We're gonna be discarding this. That's also the indication given in the manual. Though, as I told you, I've seen filter packages from some manufacturers that don't necessarily give you a new bolt. But anyways, so the bolt is ready to come out. And we let the oil drain for a while, and then we'll remove the plastic cap. And after about 20 minutes, the oil has mostly drained in the oil container. So now we can proceed with removing the filter cap. As I said, you use a 24mm hex. Yeah, it fell in there. Awesome. Oh well, that's gonna be fun to clean. 10 minutes later, I've cleaned my wrench, and as I was saying, 24mm hex, unscrew the oil filter cap, and then go ahead and remove it altogether. Perfect. And here is the oil filter cap with the filter. First things first, when you remove this, make absolutely sure that the old O-ring is present on the filter cap. In our case it is, but you have to check, because if you leave it inside and you install the new O-ring, you'll get what's called a double seal, and that's almost guaranteed to leak. Start by removing the old filter, which you just need to pull like that, and it comes out. At this point, leave this to one side and take a look at the state of the filter. You know, you want to open the fins and make sure that there's nothing out of the ordinary present inside. For example, metal shavings or stuff like that, which would indicate some big problem inside the engine. In our case, as you can see, it's pretty good, so the engine is fairly okay. Next thing, remove the old O-ring. You can use a screwdriver for this, but because this is plastic, I like to use a plastic tool. Just shove it underneath to create some leverage, and it should, with a bit of effort, come out. Discard the old O-ring, and now you can go ahead and with some brake cleaner clean the plastic cap. Now with regards to installation, you start by grabbing your new O-ring and then coating it in a layer of fresh oil. This needs to be lubricated. Never install O-rings dry. So just grab fresh oil and with your fingers dabbed in oil, lubricate the O-ring all the way around. Next, you grab your cleaned oil cap and you install your new O-ring like so, and then twist it down until it hits this row over here. This is its seating position. One more. Perfect. At this point, take a look at it all around to make sure that the O-ring is not twisted in any location, and that its surroundings are clean. In our case, they are. Secondly, grab your new filter, and you can see it's symmetrical, so it doesn't really matter which way you put it in. I'm gonna put it in so that the face with the brand name is pointing upwards, i.e. outside of the plastic cap. Take the cap, put the filter in. It should go in, and you press until you hear a firm click. That is it. You see, it's moving. Perfect. Now we can go on and install this back in the car. And underneath the car, take your new filter and cap and begin inserting it by hand slowly, and start twisting by hand until you can no longer do so. Next, you can grab your wrench and torque a bit further, but not too much. You hear it right now. You're hearing the O-ring as it's sitting inside the support. And when you're near to the maximum point that you can turn, you'll see this gap here is getting smaller and smaller. You drop the wrench and you get your torque wrench. And the torque for the oil cap is between 31.5 and 38.5 Newton meters. I've chosen about 35, 36, give or take, and twist until you hear a click. that is it. And lastly, grab your new drain bolt, lubricate the small O-ring, just as we did with the O-ring inside the filter cap, and then twist this one as well, also by hand, like so. And then tighten with your Allen key. The torque for this is between 8 and about 11 Newton meters. I'll do the torquing outside of the video, but this amount of torque roughly means hand tight. So if you just have a normal Allen key, you can use that. Here right now it still works, and now it's beginning to be tight. So you can do something like this, and that should suffice. And now it's finally time to fill with fresh oil. For that, start by opening the oil fill cap, put it to one side, and also remove the oil dipstick so that there's room for air to escape as you're adding oil. Put this one to one side as well. Bring your favorite funnel. I think it's called a funnel. If not, I apologize. And the oil. And as I said, this takes about 8 liters of fresh oil. The total capacity is about 9 point something, but you can only drain and fill about 8. And you're supposed to add the first 4, then wait a minute or two, and then add the other ones progressively while checking the oil level with the dipstick. So here's the first 4 liters. All right, I've added 7 full liters, and now the dipstick is saying that the oil level is at maximum, which is no problem, because keep in mind that at the moment the oil filter is not filled. Once we'll start the engine, the oil filter is going to fill, and the oil level with the dipstick is going to drop a bit, at which point we'll need to slightly top up, making sure that we don't exceed maximum. But before we can start the engine, there's one more thing to do, and that is to change the air filter. And changing the air filter is among the easiest things you can do on this engine. You just have these 2 metal tabs, one here and one here, which you need to pull by hand, no tools required. 1, 2. And then the entire plastic cap can be lifted and pulled so that it can exit from that pin and that one over there, just like that. And then you can simply raise it, pull it to one side, and you have, like so, and you have full access, at which point you can just go ahead and take the filter out. It comes out as one piece, like so. If you happen to have dirt, dust, various items at the bottom, you should use a vacuum cleaner to pick them up. They're not dangerous, because the way this works is air comes into the car from around here and goes to the bottom of this plastic box. I think, yeah, here it is. It comes out from here and it goes from bottom to top through the filter. So it doesn't really matter that much if there's anything down there, but it's nice to clean the area if you're at it. And lastly, just grab your new filter and insert it into the correct position, making sure that it sits flush with the box. This way the sides are sealed and air can only go through the filter, and then put the box back. And to put this back, just grab it, pull it to its original position, like so. Insert it into the tabs at the back. That's 1 and that's 2. I mean those. Then Just push it a bit more to the front. Place the two clips to their correct positions until they click. That's one. And that's two. And we are done. At this point, we are ready to start the engine. And one last thing before I start the engine, do keep in mind that because during this first start, the oil pump first needs to fill the oil filter and then the oil can actually reach the other components, you may hear a slight rattle in the first 1 or 2 seconds before the engine returns to its normal sound. Don't worry about it, this is just normal behavior. Okay, so let's start it. And you may have heard it did sound a bit different in the first 1 or 2 seconds, but now it's back to its original sound. So we're just gonna let it run for a couple of minutes and then we're gonna check underneath the car for leaks. And let's see. Underneath the car, no drips, nothing is wrong, everything is looking good. Both the air filter as well as the drain bolt. And at the top, no drips, nothing appears to be wrong. Excellent. Now we're going to stop the engine, wait a few minutes and then check the oil level, topping up as necessary as I explained earlier. We've waited for a while, let's check the oil level. And hopefully you can see it was at maximum, now it's about half full. It's even less than half, so we're gonna add maybe another half a liter of oil, meaning that we've put in 7.5 liters. I've added the oil, let's check the level again. And take a look. It already shows that it's higher. I'm just gonna leave it like this. I'm happy with the amount, which means that right now we're ready to wrap things up and take the car out for a test drive. But first, there's one more thing to do. What I mean is, take advantage of the fact that the underbody shield is removed and just do a general checkup of the state of the car from underneath. And in my case, I'm noticing two issues. Number one is a very minor oil leak here. Most likely this is the oil pan gasket that's getting a bit old and may need replacing, but it's nothing urgent. And another issue is with these hoses, which I'm pretty sure are from the intercooler. I'm seeing some oil issues. This may need a bit of investigation. I'm not sure if this indicates that there's something leaking from up top and simply dripping on the hoses, or if this indicates that there may be oil inside the air circuit. But in any case, I'll give it a check and see what's what. After you're all done with checking the state of the car, go out for a test drive. I recommend not installing the underbody shield just yet. So test drive the car for a couple of minutes to make sure it fully warms up, and then bring it back and check for more leaks. Finally, let's proceed with the cabin air filter or pollen filter, however you want to call it. For this, you need to open the glove box, and you see the glove box has two plastic tabs, one here and the similar one here. These need to be twisted 90 degrees. That's one, and that is two. And then just remove them, and the glove box goes all the way down, revealing the location of the cabin filter. This is very similar to the way it's built in the Range Rover. At which point there are two plastic tabs which you need to pull like this, and then the entire mask should come out to reveal the filter. You may struggle a bit when doing this. And with the mask removed, there is the filter. As I said in the Range Rover servicing video, I only use the FP Freshest Plus, I think they're called, series from MAN. They're available for the Sportage as well. The model, I think, is FP24004, if I'm not mistaken. And at this point, you should just grab it by one tab and pull it out. After you pull it out, you put the new filter in, making sure to pay attention to the flow direction, which should be written on one of the sides of the filter. So you have to make sure you don't put it upside down. Then you push it all the way back. You put the plastic mask back on until it clicks like that, and then you go and install the two plastic tabs to each side of the glove box, and you are done. All right, I've checked the car. Everything is fine, it drives well, there are no problems. I've installed the metal underbody shield back in its original place, and with that, we're done servicing the Kia. So let's move on to the conclusions. And just as with the Range Rover, I'm going to reiterate the same points. Number one, remember to recycle the old oil and filters. Especially oil should never be dumped in the sink, on the ground, down the drain, or anything like that. It should always be taken somewhere for recycling because it is very toxic. Number two, as always, costs. Quoted a dealer for a full service, including the diesel fuel filter, which I'll be changing a bit later. And they asked for about 300 euros, give or take a few. Everything's gotten a bit more expensive here lately. And what I bought here cost me nearly 150 euros. Actually less than 150 euros, but I'm also taking into account that I've spent a little bit on the tools that I needed. So, again, nearly half of what a dealer asked for the same kind of service, and I expect the car to be absolutely fine and work well with the items that I've installed. And with that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.